Now these are the H bridges that run the motors. It's 4 power transistors each, and then they're triggered by smaller transistors on the board. I have another motherboard here that I had in the Urban Rover bot. Now this one has the wires connected to it for the Arduino to be connected to. Let's see if I can get in close here. How good's my autofocus? There we go. You can see where they're connected to those 2 surface mount transistors. And those are the transistors that trigger these transistors. And it either switches on the ones that give it a positive voltage or a negative voltage. That's what makes the motors go forwards and backwards. So the motherboard, we'll set that aside and keep that. Now let's go ahead and focus on taking one of these motors out so I can show you what's inside those. We'll start with this one, I guess, because it's just right here in my hands. Again, there's some hot glue and things to pull up off from the chassis to get the wires free. And once we do that, there's 2 screws buried down in here. One's right there, and the other one is right there. Those 2 screws have to come out, and they will release this little piece on the bottom that captures this part of the motor and allows it to pivot, and also keeps it attached to the chassis. So it's just 2 screws to take that out of there. I still have a little bit of stuff hanging out in here. Didn't quite get it all out. Like I said, there's lots of recesses where that stuff can hide. And sometimes I can really screw things up on some of the parts of the Roomba. It'll make things not work properly, especially in the wheel sensors. Now we have the motor just about out of here. There we go. Let's put this aside. Let's get all this nastiness out of the way. Okay, so here's a motor assembly, and you can hear the gears in there. I'm going to go ahead and take this apart for you so you can see what's inside. Let's get this side off first, and you can see the drive belt. Just 4 screws to hold this cover on. They're short screws, so don't mix these up if you're doing some work on taking anything apart for any reason to clean stuff. Keep them aside because they need to be the short screws. Otherwise they go through too far. And this cover comes off, and there's the drive belt and the wheel sensor, or the right there is a small infrared device, another transmitter and receiver, and as these wheels go by, it breaks the beam or not. It bounces back, and then the thing can keep track of how many wheel rotations are going on. But I guess they're not that accurate because of the belt. The belt makes things slip a bit, and so therefore you end up getting a little bit extra stuff added in all the time that isn't really there, as if it traveled some distance and it didn't. I'm just going to put 1 screw back in there now to hold that in place while I flip this over and show you the other side. There's 2 screws that hold this on. There's one there, one down in this recessed thing, so you'll need the smaller screwdriver for that. Loosen these 2 up. And there's a small clip right here that has to come loose. That's easy enough. There's some crud. Well, there's also a little cap that goes on top of the axle of this thing right there. It's important that you keep that because it drops on there and the cover goes back on. It holds everything in place. Let's put that aside, and we'll take these 3 small screws off that hold the wheel on. These wheels are really robust. They're very squishy. They look like they're going to hold up really well for all kinds of uses. You can see the stuff that builds up in here. This is the stuff that raises havoc with the Roomba sensors and whatnot. Sometimes it can seize a wheel up. There are overcurrent resistors, I was told, on board to prevent anything from burning out if the wheel does seize up. So, yuck. Put that aside. Now here's the inside and all the carpet, dog hair, whatever. I don't have no idea where this this Roomba's been. I don't want to know. That's nasty. Let's get that aside too. And inside here, there's always stuff built up. Also, get this out. Don't breathe it. Okay, that's out of the way. Now inside here is the gear reduction box. It's a wonderful little planetary gear system, and we'll pull off these 4 screws now and I can show you what that looks like. You have to be kind of careful when you lift this cover off, and it's best to have the cover on the other side because everything kind of gets loose and wants to fall back through if you don't. It wouldn't be impossible to put everything back together, but anytime you're taking these things apart, just kind of go slow, watch carefully as you lift off covers where gears go, because sometimes things tend to fly apart and it can be a little difficult to discern exactly where they go again. So here we go. I'll lift this off and push down in this center section to keep everything from coming with it. Look at that. Isn't that nice? There's the outside stationary gear and the planetary gears, and I'm not sure what the gear reduction is on this. I could probably figure that out. Maybe talk to my friend that used to work for iRobot and he might be able to tell me. So I'm going to leave that apart because I'm going to clean it up before I put it back together. I do plan on using this in another robot, so let me put that over here. Now, what else is there on this thing that we can use? There's quite a few little goodies. There's a motor here that's the little brush that spins the dirt into the bigger brushes. That's got a nice little gear reduction box on it, so that could be fun to use. A couple of those could actually be drive wheels for a robot if you repurposed what goes on here. You know, this little brush thing, do whatever you want with it. You can mount this on top of a robot and just let it spin around because it would look goofy. This little wheel could be used on a 3-wheel robot as the trailing wheel. The battery box is very valuable, and it can also be kept intact and plugged back into the motherboard, and then you can still use the charging monitoring circuit on the motherboard to charge up the battery in your robot. This is one I cut out and had mounted in my prototype urban robot. There's also the dirt sensors on here. I'm actually not quite sure how those work. I need to do a little more research on it. They kind of look like piezoelectric sensors, don't they? But I'm not that sure. On the back, there's a little box here where things are all kind of housed inside something. I need to open one of those up at some point and dig around in there. I guess I could just do that right now. Take one of these covers off and see what's inside. I haven't done that yet, so this is a revelation to both of us here in this moment. I'll put my screws aside for my motor so I don't lose those. Okay, what's underneath there? Well, look at that. There is an entire circuit supporting that thing. So yeah, I'm assuming that that's some kind of piezoelectric sensor. It probably picks up dirt hitting against it, and then it creates voltages, and these 2 little controllers on board send signals to the motherboard that there's dirt present, and the little blue light comes on, and then the thing goes into a subroutine where it spins around in circles and cleans up that spot a little better than anything else. These micro switches are really handy. There's like I said, there's 3 I think on board, and there's a close-up of one of them right there. They're really robust little micro switches. Those could be used for bump sensors on a robot somewhere. There's a lot of wiring in here that you can put to use. Some of these little pins can connect into other things, other microcontrollers and whatnot, onto breadboards really easily. So that's all worth saving too. Don't throw any of this stuff out, it's all good. And the speakers over here for all the little sounds that the Roomba makes. That's kind of a handy little thing to keep as well. And that's about it.